welcome or welcome back. My name is Ari and happy Valentine's Day. This should be going live on Valentine's Day, so if it's not Valentine's Day, I screwed up somewhere. It's fine. If you've been here for a while, you know that in February I torture myself by reading 5 to 6 romance novels. I don't like romance, especially contemporary romance. There's so many tropes that are frequently found in contemporary romance or romance in general that I just really hate reading about. But every year I try again and suffer through some romance titles. So I have some different things planned out. Usually I take this time to read the winner plus one other in the Goodreads Choice Awards from the previous year, so 2022 Goodreads Choice Awards. So I'll be reading the winner, which I believe is Book Lovers, which I don't want to read. And then I'm going to pick something else in there. I'm thinking Delilah Green Doesn't Care, because if I have to read romance, let's read some lesbian romance. And that leaves 3 other books, at least, that I want to read. I'm definitely thinking like the ones that I own physically on my shelves, like get them off of my shelves. But I have other options. I've got audiobooks that'll work. I've got other things. We'll figure it out when we get there. But I did want to talk about After All because I've already read this. It's a short contemporary romance. It's the first of the month. I've read it already, and I am so excited to share with you that this is my first 1-star of the year. This was awful. I got it in a book box. I read it as a try a chapter tag, and it kind of reminded me of like a Nicholas Sparks novel, and I've been down for some Nicholas Sparks. I tend to read Nicholas Sparks on airplanes, but I was like, hey, I read these books. I like the movies. I could probably do this. I could have a good cry out of here. It was not. It was not. This was so awful. The writing was bad. Objectively, it's probably a 2-star read and not a 1-star read, but pretty early on in the book, there was like, you know, they like give you red herrings and hints at like plot twists that might come up. And there was this thing, there was something that happened that I was like, if that actually turns out to be a plot twist, I'm giving this book 1 star. And of course it turned out to be a plot twist. It was awful. The characters are bad, like completely two-dimensional. It's a lot of tell and not show about personalities. Characters' reactions to things are either like overblown or non-existent, and it's overblown when they shouldn't have a reaction and non-existent when it should. A lot of blaming other people for things that the characters are doing themselves. The age of the characters feels wrong. Like, the main characters are in their 30s, like mid-30s, and they have like the emotional capacity of early 20s maybe. Our heroine, I guess, has a daughter who's 15 years old, who's pretty much only exists in this story as a plot device. Like, she needed a reason, or the main character needed a reason to go back to this town, and her daughter was the reason that she went back to this town. And the dialogue that the daughter has is extremely flat. Like, this young girl has no personality, and she talks like a 7-year-old. So it's impossible to picture this girl as a teenager. All of the dialogue is pretty bad. Like I said, there's just problem after problem after problem. In addition to all like the characterization and the bad writing, the editing's bad too. There's a character in here on page 118, if you have the paperback, or there's a character named Rennie, Rennie, and she's like the best friend of our heroine. And her name is Rennie throughout most of the book, but for some reason, twice in this paragraph, her name is Renee. So it's like they just straight up didn't, like, I guess the author might have changed her name at some point and they didn't fix it all. But yeah, it's like Renee and then Rennie and then Rennie and then Renee and then Rennie. It's like, so is her name Renee or Rennie? And I'm pretty sure it's Rennie because it's Rennie everywhere else in the book except for these two instances of Renee. But yeah, that was really weird editing. There's other editing issues, but that was like by far the most noticeable. I have a whole lot more about this book on Goodreads if you want to read like all of my thought out and processed, like what the hell is wrong with this book kind of thing. But overall, I don't recommend this to anybody. It's awful. Even if you like contemporary romance, there's such better like small town contemporary romance than whatever the hell this is. And it has a great rating on Goodreads, which is just bizarre to me. But yeah, I definitely don't recommend this. Don't pick it up. Let's move on to something else that, I mean, it can only go up from here, right? Like, I can't have another 1 star, right? Over the weekend, I read two romance novels. A whole two of them. Varying degrees of success. The first one I want to talk about is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is about a agent, like a book literary agent, that's the term for it, named Nora. And Nora is kind of obsessed with books, which makes sense, specifically romance novels. And she feels like she's living her life in a small town romance novel, except for she's like the shrew big city girl that the hero always leaves to go be with like his new country girl in the romance novels. So she doesn't get her own romance. She's the one who just keeps getting left by man after man after man. Well, her sister wants to set Nora up as the heroine, or really the hero, of a small town country romance novel. So she rents a Airbnb, I guess. So she rents a house in like a small town in North Carolina for a month, and then has this checklist for her uptight sister to go through, where she experiences all like the checkpoints of a small town romance and then has her own happily ever after. All in all, that kind of sounds like a setup of a typical contemporary romance that I don't care about. Guys, I actually liked this book. What the hell happened? So our main character Nora is like my kind of character. She's that unlikable female character that I'm always raving about in like fantasy and sci-fi. This just happens to be a contemporary romance. But yeah, I loved her. I love her personality. She's my everything and I will die for her. While it poked a lot of fun at like all of the tropes of different romances, it didn't have the tropes that I hate, mostly miscommunication. Wasn't really much miscommunication, if any. There was like a little bit of secret keeping, but it wasn't miscommunication. So, like, I enjoyed this. Also, Emily Henry is hilarious, and I just constantly was laughing out loud at like the banter between the hero and heroine of this. So, I finally found a contemporary romance that I enjoyed. So if y'all know of more books like this, feed them to me so I can read them. But yeah, 4 stars. I enjoyed this. I was happy reading it. The other one I read this weekend was Heart of the Fae by Emma Hamm. Now this is fantasy romance, so it's something that I went into like expecting to pretty much enjoy. When I create these videos, I do choose contemporary romances knowing that I don't like contemporary romances, but I always try to throw in at least one fantasy romance because I know I like fantasy romance. I didn't actually like this one very much. It was fine. It was a 3-star. It wasn't bad. It's the writing is not very good, and I think my enjoyment of this book was probably thrown off a lot because I'm reading so much like beautifully written nonfiction and literary fiction for Black History Month as well, like at the same time that I'm trying to consume these romances. So this is very, like, there's not much of a plot. There's a little bit of a plot, not much of a plot. There's like very minimal world building. This is definitely one of those books that you could just read and not have to think about anything in the world, which I think is what this is perfect for. Like, you don't want to think, you don't want to use your brain, you just want to enjoy some fairy porn. This is your book. It's vaguely a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Like, you get the hints of Beauty and the Beast in here, but it's not really necessarily a Beauty and the Beast retelling. But our main character Scorcha is a healer. She's a midwife, and she lives with her sisters, who are found family sisters, in a brothel, right? So she is not a whore, but she lives with a lot of whores who are well treated by their father, who is not her biological father, but like the man in charge of the brothel. All get along well, all like each other, very happy, like the best kind of brothel, and like the whole freeing sexual femininity thing going on in here. There is a plague going around where like there's beetles underneath the skin. I don't know, it's gross, but she's trying to find a cure for it and ends up making a deal with a bunch of fae to get a cure for this plague that's affecting humanity. And the deal is they will give her the cure or tell her where to find the cure, something like that, if she goes to this island of banished fae and retrieves a king. And that's basically what happens in the book, but of course, fairy porn. The pacing is super fast. This is something you could just devour quickly. There's not a lot of like cliffhangers, or you're not like stressed about like finding out what's gonna happen next. Like, the pace just goes. So if that's what you're looking for, great book for it. My dog's burping as he walks into the room. All in all, it's fine. I'm definitely going to continue with the series, but you're not getting great world building, great storylines, or anything like this. This is a brainless, smutty read. This particular one is slow burn, so if you're expecting like a whole lot of sex scenes, you're not going to get it in here, but you at least get one. At least one. So I know I'm wearing the same shirt that I was wearing in the last clip, but it is literally a week plus later and I've done laundry. And apparently I like wearing this shirt a lot. Also, my dog is sleeping in the background, so if you hear snoring or random grumpiness, that is him being his normal self. So, last two books that I'm talking about, and it is very interesting how this ended up turning out. I have a DNF and a 2-star in this little section, so that means I gave the 5 books that I read DNF, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star. Which is honestly better than I expected for a romance. So let's talk about the DNF first. I chose to DNF the designs of Lord Randolph Kavanaugh. When I was a teenager, I loved these kinds of historical romances, especially by Stephanie Lawrence. Because she wrote the Sinster series, which I don't even know if you can see it, but I have like the whole collection right down here. And I love the Sinster novels. This is kind of a tie-in series to the Sinsters. Rand, our hero, is the protege of Gabriel Sinster, and his sister-in-law is a Sinster. So it's tied in, but they're not actually related to the Sinster family at all. And this is basically the heroine's father and brother are scientists who are inventing a horseless carriage, or a car, and Rand is the like lead investor on their inventions for some sort of scientific fair, basically. And I DNF'd it here, and that's all we've talked about, is like this invention of a car that I don't care about. It's so repetitive. It's so boring, and this literally reads with like the same formula and same plot line of every single solitary historical romance that Stephanie Lawrence has ever read. And I've read plenty of them, and I'm just not like, it's been done, I don't care anymore. And so I struggled for 4 or 5 days trying to read this, and like literally this is as far as I got in 5 days. Which is not very far at all. So eventually, I mean, today's Valentine's Day, so I kind of had to give up. So I gave up on this. I'm like, I'm done. I don't care. We're good. So yeah, we're just counting our losses here. The fact that I've only DNF'd one of these books is kind of amazing. But yes, that one is off the list. The other book that I read that was a 2-star was Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I was kind of shocked by this because I, like, ranking how I would enjoy these books, if I would have done that at the beginning of the video, this would have probably been like, oh, I think I'll give this a 3-star, it'll be fine, but I won't really love it. But no, no, there's a lot of problems with this. The major one being, like, one of the major plot lines of this throughout the book is miscommunication through a lot of people. The couple, Delilah and Claire, I think, they didn't really have any miscommunication. The miscommunication, though there was a little bit. There was a little bit. The major miscommunication was between Delilah and her stepsister Astrid, and then Astrid and her bridesmaids. So a lot of like background miscommunication and a little bit between the couple, but that wasn't a major plot line. So the plot line of this book is Delilah is a photographer, and she has come back home to her small Oregon town to take wedding pictures for her sister Astrid's wedding. And she ends up hooking up with Astrid's bridesmaid, or maid of honor, I believe, whose name is Claire. And there's like a bunch of unresolved sibling stuff going on from their childhood. They don't like each other. Delilah doesn't want to come back home, but she's getting paid to do this. And then there's a lot of unresolved issues between Astrid, her bridesmaid, and her groom. And I just really got the ick from that relationship. Like, they're getting married. It's a couple of weeks before the wedding starts, and we're kind of predisposed to hate the groom. Like, ew, why would I want to read, like, how is that a romance? Even if it's not Astrid's romance, like, I don't want to read this. But overall, I just really didn't enjoy my experience with this one. The other problem I have, which was very much a me problem, is I know going into this, obviously, I've said it multiple times, that I don't like contemporary romance, so I didn't want to pay for this book. So I wanted to borrow it from my library. But the only copy my library had is an audiobook copy. And I can't even explain to you how uncomfortable it is to listen to a narrator narrate sex scenes. Like, I did not enjoy that experience at all. At all. So, yeah. I never want to repeat that again. But I didn't want to spend money on this book. So, yeah. Let's not do romances as audiobooks anymore. But 2-star, this one, it could be for some people, it just really isn't for me. But it is what it is. Anyway, those are the 5 books that I kind of read for my yearly torture of reading romance for Valentine's Day. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I will see you Saturday for the next video. Bye!